This is a Trangia stove, which is a great piece of Nordic engineering. It's a stove that works on spirit, on methylated spirits, which should always be stored in a proper regulation bottle like this. Not a flimsy plastic bottle that's going to break in your rucksack and cause a mess. So, inside the stove we have these things. We have the burner, we've got the pan grips, and we have two pans which nest inside one another like that. We've got the lid, we have the pan holder, which is like this, with three clips inside that support the pan, and then we have the pan base. The first thing to do is completely remove the strap from the pan base. That will burn, you don't want it anywhere near the flames. Store that safely with your other equipment. Then you place this base, the thing with the holes in it, on the ground. Arrange it so that the holes are facing into the prevailing wind, and the wind will help get your stove going nicely once it's lit. Next you take the burner and you remove the simmer ring, and then you unscrew the inner cap and put all of them to one side safely for later on. The next thing to do is to attach the pan support to the top of the burner holder. There are, I don't know if you can see that on the camera there, three little notches in the base of the pan support that correspond with three small lugs on the base of the burner holder. So it's important that you line those up correctly when you're assembling the whole thing. And then rotate it so that the whole unit now locks together like that. And obviously disassembling it is the opposite process. So, vents into the wind, we're now ready to put some methylated spirits into our burner. To do this, you should take the burner and the meths a distance away from your pans and where you're going to be cooking, in case you have a spillage. Now, this should normally be 3 to 5 metres away, but for the purposes of shooting this video, I'm only going to move it about 50 centimetres. So the first thing to do is to unscrew the cap, the outer part of the cap on the bottle. That then means that this top part can be pressed down. That then releases a valve which allows you to pour the meths out of that side or out of that side of the bottle. So then you hold the bottle above the burner, press the button, and the meths comes out. You should aim to completely fill the little brass burner receptacle, because the meths slowly sinks down from the central section and moves into the outer reservoir. And so once it's sunk down, leave that a few seconds and then top it up. Not to the very top, leave about a centimetre spare at the top. Having done that, you then resecure the lid on the fuel bottle and move the fuel bottle to a safe distance away. You now pick up the burner carefully and lower it into the centre of the stove assembly, and it sits nicely in its small housing. I strongly recommend getting something like this to light it with instead of a match. You can use a match or light it, but it's much easier with one of these candle lighters because you've got to store places you see distance from the flame. So you then aim for just above the surface of the meths and click your lighter, and the meths will ignite. It won't be a sudden flame, and in daylight it's sometimes quite difficult to see that it's even alight. What I often do is take a blade of grass and just hold that above where the flame should be and see what happens. And you can see it's starting to smoke there, so it is alight. There we go. Virtually invisible in bright daylight. At night you can see a blue flame up to about here. So, having then done that, you would then put your water into your pan, put your food, dehydrated water, and then using the pan grips, get hold of the pan with the food and water in and put it on the flame. Something to be careful of after you finish cooking is don't lower your red hot pan straight onto the grass. It'll scorch the grass and the ground. Instead, one thing you can do is invert the other pan, use that as a pan stand. Another important point is when you're boiling your water, once the pan is on the flame, use the lid to keep the heat in while it's boiling. It also keeps insects and other debris towards the pan. Use the pan grips like that to lift it off, pan grips again to lift it off, remembering that everything is hot. When the time comes to put out your flame, take the snuffer lid, that's the one that has no threads on it, and just place it over the top of the flames. If at any point the pans are getting too hot and your food's starting to burn, you can remove it from the heat and then open the snuffer. It then becomes what's called a simmer ring, and that can then be dropped onto the flames. Sometimes you might need to adjust it slightly with the pan grips, and then it reduces the heat of the flame. To snuff out, the simmer ring has to be closed, and you can then just place that over the flames like that quickly, and it snuffs the flames out. An important safety point is you must never refill the burner while it's hot. If your meths all burns out and the food stops cooking, remove the food, and you must be able to lift the burner out with your bare hands. It has to be that cool before you can then take it to a safe place away from the cooking and refill with your meths. If you finish cooking and there's still meths in there, allow it to cool down, make sure the flame's extinguished, and then when it's cooled, you can remove the top of your meths bottle by turning the black section. This completely opens the bottle, make sure there's no naked flames nearby, and the meths from the burner can be poured safely back into the fuel bottle, and it can be screwed closed again. One of the good things about meths, unlike petrol and paraffin, is that it's not super inflammable, and if you get some on your hands, it very quickly evaporates and disappears. It doesn't leave any sort of oily deposit. But you do want to keep the meths away from your food so that it doesn't become contaminated and taste really unpleasant. That's it. Thank you.